They finally cracked Apple's walled garden. Huge deal. Like a 30% on your app, big deal, or 15% if you're doing less than $1 million a year. But that's crazy. This is a daily upload. My name is Parker Rex. I led tech for a startup that sold for $23 million. After that, I went all in on AI. I built a lot of agents, and I talk about it on this channel. So, like I said, the Apple stuff, I just want to go through it so everyone understands, because I personally had to deal with this when we were operating on iOS. And just a quick rundown on what happened was basically they've been in hot water ever since Epic, the founder or the company behind Fortnite, came after them. So kudos to Epic, because what they did pushed this, where they implemented direct payments in Fortnite on iOS on August 13th. Then they removed it literally the same day. And then the next day they filed an antitrust suit. This has been going on for 5 years almost. And finally, things flipped, where they basically ripped the Band-Aid on commissions. And so just quick highlights. The first one that they tried to do was, we're going to make it so that you can have an external purchase link. And it's instead of 30, it's 27. But then they added these like scary looking screens where it's like, you better not leave. You better not go. You're going to die. You might get a virus or something. So it was kind of crazy. And then they had like really strict ruling around it. If anyone's built on iOS, you know that dealing with the App Store is a nightmare. It's so tough. We operated a food delivery app that did not have guest checkout for about a year and a half. And we were doing at that point probably $30 million a year with it. And then all of a sudden they say, you don't have guest checkout. We can't release your new update. And we're like, hello, where have you been the last like year and a half? So it's super inconsistent, super tough. So the walled garden is only cracked. It's not broken open. But that was their first step, was doing that. But now it has basically, they basically said, hey, you cannot impede developers' ability to communicate with users about external purchasing options. So that's awesome. And that would be the scare screens. You cannot impose restrictions on the placement, formatting, style, or language of the buttons. Because if it's some rule where it's like, you got to go to some scary looking menu or something. And what else was interesting about this? I also found in a chat, there was slacks from the iOS team just saying like, they're just like talking about how bad they could make it look. So the impact on profitability for businesses previously paying 15%, they now retain it. And those that were getting 30% haircuts now retain it. Like, that is a bananas overturn. And let's see. Now we can own the customer relationship. So transactions processed directly allow businesses to capture the email addresses and other contact info. Basically, you can throw a pixel on them. You can start to bring them into your funnel in a more effective way. And I know that there's some differences because they've been in hot water with the EU. But beforehand, Big Tech was trying to dodge the fees. I don't know if you've ever had the Kindle app, but you couldn't buy a book on there because they didn't want to get the 30% haircut. It's more like a satellite application, which is awesome that it's changed now because you can invest further in your iOS app without fear. So before, companies like Netflix, Spotify, and Amazon with its Kindle app primarily offer access to content purchased outside of the app to avoid that 30%. So very, very cool. And the impact on them, they basically, Apple just got estimates say like a $25 to $32 billion deletion. So I'm actually curious. Let's look at Google stocks. Let's see what Apple did. So let's type in Apple. Not much after the hearing. Guess people don't care. But they did process a staggering 1.1 trillion in developer billings in 2022. So you can only imagine that's larger. So that's just a big deal. Shout out to Tim Sweeney, the leader over at Epic Games, because that must have been a very expensive battle to win. Very, very cool. So that one is done. Now I want to talk about, let's pick maybe a couple more. Let's do, how about this? Oneshot Analytics. So this guy's name is Yohai, and I met him when, this must have been 3 years ago, where he was building something called Baby AGI. And you can see he follows me because we met and we chatted, and he was liking what I was doing. I was trying to build agents in the like just general productivity space at the OS, not the OS level, but like something that could control all your different apps, but it was before MCP existed. So we talked a fair bit about that, but what he has done in Replit is actually really interesting. There's a lot of different ways to make agents. And what he did here was he says, it's time to add Google Analytics. Oh, wait. And he made a one-shot analytics dashboard, which I think is pretty cool, where he just types that in and then he got this. Now, if you go and you look at his page, he also built this thing called VCpedia. So it's like an encyclopedia style thing with all the information for what's going on in the VC world. So I vibe coded a startup intelligence platform introducing VCpedia, startup funding discussions captured on X, analyzed with OpenAI, enriched with Exa. Ooh, we got the wrong one. With Exa, and then a daily newsletter using Resend built with the Replit agent. The only thing that I've seen that's negative about this is the performance, but I think that's just by nature going to happen if you're not going and optimizing things. You don't optimize first, right? So when you get into it, basically, if you just want the automated daily newsletter, you can go here, sample and image attached. So this is pretty cool, right? Where it has a bunch of the stuff in here. It may not be perfect, but I mean, the guy said he built it in a week, and that's really impressive and very cool to see. I haven't used Replit in probably 2 years. So if anyone is using Replit, can you comment below just with your raw feedback on it, whether it's awesome or if it's dog water? You could comment Replit is dog water or Replit is awesome, and here's the thing I built with it. But yeah, this wasn't even something I planned on building, but the idea came to me weeks ago, and I put other builds on hold. And so you can see that he basically gets these daily summaries of the X posts, and it's not super UI friendly, but it works, where he just has these keywords, and this is a search operator in Twitter or X, and then it comes back, and he says that it was occasionally picking up funding rounds, so he started imagining combining this with a graph-based approach, and you can see this, pretty cool. So if you're familiar with graphs, the simplest way to think about it is like your brain has topics and they connect on different edges. So an edge would be the line. So if I say the word edge, now I have an edge that's thinking of edge networking or the edge of this table. And that's kind of a really, really dumbed down, watered down way of thinking of how this works. But it's used with clustering. It's used with traversing databases. It's a nice visual representation of information on the screen. And so by the end of it, you have complete profile pages for every entity. Very cool. This is kind of like he rolled his own, I don't even know what it's called. It's like pitch book. Pay like $40,000 a year to get this information. And he just self-rolls it in a week. So I've been making a lot of jokes about, I'm going to roll my own Neuralink, because someone comments and they're like, what's up with the headphones? I'm like, I just rolled my own Neuralink. I just rolled my own payment processor. I just rolled my own air conditioning. It's a meme. I don't think people catch on. All the neckbeards get angry, but I'm going to lean into it. So does it work? Yes. In the last week, he caught key funding rounds. He's catching about 200 of them on the top end. Yes, it makes mistakes. Did I really vibe code this? Yep. Literally just the Replit agent and some docs. And he did 5 versions in 1 week. So very cool. You can see that it comes back with, hey, I need to optimize. And then it comes back and it tries to figure it out. Now, the coolest part to me is I saw this and I was like, ooh, is that mermaid? No. Then I realized this is how Claude outputs things. So if we look at this, let's actually grab this image because I want to walk through this. And this might take a minute, but this is really, really cool because it's kind of a combination of things that you could do in a make.com or an N8N or a GCP, but he just did it in here. So in my head, this is probably a bunch of Python because I know he's a Python guy and a bunch of SQL. So let's see, he has and then the basic front end. And I know they use Vite for Replit. So yeah, you have the admin interface and then a query setup. So it has all the stuff that it needs to store for the queries, and then the search query database with a scheduler system. So I'm not sure how that's set up, but it sounds cool. I don't know what a celery task is. What is a celery task in this context? Also, how's this work? If you were to guess, let's get this. Cool. So then it calls the Twitter API, it retrieves the tweet data, stores it in the database, processes it to do the entity extraction. I think it's with 4.0. Does that identification across, is it a startup, an investor, a founder, or a funding round? And then it separates them. So it's kind of like he's doing ETL. He stores it, he does some transformation on it or classification on it, and then he's loading it into a new database in a new way. In this diagram, a celery task is a background job that handles in the execution. Okay, so it's like a cron. Got it. Once triggered, input and scheduling. Okay, that's fine. So once those are all stored, then the new ones are sent to Exa. So Exa, as I recall, is kind of like, let's just see, like a SERP. Exa API. Yeah, web search, web researcher. Cool. Yeah, so, oh my gosh, that's a nice looking animation. I haven't used Exa much. If you've used Exa, I'd love to hear from you guys below on what you're using it for, like straight up, because I'm going to have to go use this. This looks cool. And then from Exa, it gets the web search results, and then he processes them with OpenAI to get structured info, and then the structured info goes back to enrich the database. Over here, it looks like he analyzes entity resolution, identifies candidates with name similarity scoring. Whoa. Vector embeddings, candidates. So I guess in this case, the candidates people, or I think it's deals. Confirmed duplicates. So he's doing dupe coverage. And then you have the newsletter. So this comes off of entity database once all this is enriched and updated. You got the daily trigger that fires, prepares funding round data, processes it with 4.0, generates the content, generates the subject headline, combines it into the newsletter, stores it in the newsletter database. Newsletter DB fires the resend, updates the delivery status, and then goes back and writes. This is so cool. So cool. Yeah. What a cool thing. And that is going to be it for the video, actually, because I want to end with some fire. So no more stories. What I wanted to just talk about really quickly is how do you delineate, and I'll make a whole video about this because it's kind of a big topic, but it's like, I see a lot of questions about like, when do you choose make versus N8N versus GCP versus, let's say, Replit for agentic workflows, because that's what these are. And it depends on the use case, right? So in my case, if it's something that I want to sell as a service, then it's one of these, right? But if it's like, if I'm selling a service, then I use that. If I'm building a business with it, totally different thing. Like a SaaS, where I need this thing to have infinite customizability, infinite scalability, and I can ultimately put a front end on it with auth and sessions and all these things, then that's when you go for something like GCP. But then the question is like, okay, well, if it's just for you with interface, like with UI, then probably Replit. Like if this is just single serve sort of deal, like I'm thinking more and more about this, and I see a lot of people on the N8N subreddits trying to figure out auth and figure out sessions and figuring out all that stuff. And you can do it, but again, you're going to be limited. Like I say you can do it because like one person on Reddit figured it out, but I just don't think that you'd want to have that as your dedicated backend. Maybe if it's just a small app, but yeah, that's how I'm thinking about it. If you guys found this helpful, make sure you like the video. I have a lot more stuff like this coming. I think the Apple stuff's bananas. I think this Replit agent flow is really, really cool. I have more stuff that I'm going to be covering tomorrow, which is on the MCP plus A2A, which is agent to agent. I'm going to be talking about a bunch of the AI influencers, the top people to follow, about code gen with taste and this speedy OS agent, as well as some hot takes from the founder of SuperMaven, who basically made the Cursor tab a lot better when Cursor bought their company. If you want behind the scenes stuff of me building, then you can also check out our school. We have a really active Discord. As you can see, people are always trying to figure out the next edge on different development workflows, marketing workflows, all of that. Right now, we're running a special. It's half off because we're going to be moving off of school just to provide an elevated member experience. So can't wait to see you guys tomorrow, and I'll catch you then.